terms of apologies, we have one apology. That's from Stephen Agnew. Okay, can we move then
He's not going to be here.
to
Gordon Dunn as well.
Pardon?
Gordon Dunn.
Is Gordon not here? All right.
He's a minister out
He's
there.
away. He's a bigger thing. Big picture man.
Apologies from Phil as well.
And Phil?
I'll get away early today.
Be a quiet one.
So that's Stephen, Gordon, Phil. Okay, thank you. Move to the draft minutes then. That's 5. If members are content with the detail and accuracy of the minutes, agreed?
Agreed.
Right. Then we move on to chairperson's business. There aren't any papers for this item. And then, furthermore, we'll be moving into closed session at the end to consider an Assembly research briefing on a specialist advisor in economic policy, if that's agreed with members, okay? Table today is also an invitation from the Committee for the Office of First and Deputy First Minister to a European Economic and Social Committee presidency event on the 3rd of April, but that clashes with our committee meeting in Bangor. So we'll just note that and tell them, unless anybody has a particular interest, that they want to go to that instead of Bangor, but then they will be in the soup with Gordon. So. Okay?
Well, geez,
Now,
sure, I'll not be in Bangor. I'm not here next week.
all right,
I've already
right.
told Gordon that.
Dead on, Sydney. Then, furthermore, there's another item that is suggested we put on here. Is the post office job losses and the potential for it. Now, we've seen it mooted already that there are going to be serious impacts right between England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland here, a very significant number of job losses, potentially. So, do members feel it would be appropriate that we invite the post office in to make a presentation to us? Do we find out just exactly what the scale of their proposed cuts are and what they are doing to diminish or reduce the impact of those? And how it might affect services, in fact. Agreed, then we do that. Then the CAL Committee, the Culture, Arts and Leisure Committee has scheduled an oral briefing on tourism event strategy and an oral and written briefing on experiential tourism, whatever that is, from the Northern Ireland Tourist Board on Thursday the 3rd of April. So at the end, do we have a time for that?
Just for information, Chair, it's a briefing to the CAL Committee.
Oh, they're running simultaneous to ourselves then, so really can't attend that. Now, the next item is an oral briefing from the Northern Ireland Tourist Board, the Giro d'Italia 2014, UK City of Culture 2013, G8 Summit and World Police and Fire Games 2013. The items for this are at page 12, include the Parks Brief, page 13, briefing paper from the Northern Ireland Tourist Board, departmental response to the Committee on Regional Development, to a query on the benefits of cycling. And before the committee today are Alan Clark, Chief Executive, and Catherine Thompson, Chief Operating Officer of the Northern Ireland Tourist Board. You're both very welcome. It's good to see you again at the committee. Thanks for attending. And I'm sure you maybe want to make, the form here, you want to make an opening statement to the committee, and then we'll have a series of questions. That's okay. So, Mr. Clark, over to yourself then.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, we're going to just give you a brief update on the 2013 events and on the Giro d'Italia this year. We've also brought some nice handouts for you as well. So hope you enjoy those. I suppose really, if I cover first of all really the background, and I think the committee is well aware that NI 2012 was a very successful year for Northern Ireland, but also for events. And really capitalised on two things. One was the amount of capital investment, especially around things like Titanic and the Giant's Causeway Visitor Centre coming on stream in that particular year, as well as a number of significant anniversaries and centenaries, the 50th Belfast Festival of Queens, but more than anything else, I guess the centenary around Titanic in that year. So it was really a very successful year, and I guess going into 2013 we wanted to build on that, but we also wanted to build on the ethos of 2012, which was not just about tourism, but it's actually widening tourism's role in the economy. And a big element of 2012 was not just about coming here to visit, which is very important for us, but it's also about civic pride, people who live here. It's about inward investment. It's about people coming here to study at university. So it was widening the message and the role that tourism could play in that context. Into 2013, we probably had 3 key events in 2013, the G8, the World Police and Fire Games, and the UK City of Culture. And that really gave us something to build on coming out of 2012. I suppose really, I'll just go through those very, very briefly. Chair, you've had the brief in those. The G8, I think, was a major opportunity to showcase Northern Ireland, and particularly Fermanagh, to the world. I think we're very lucky with the weather. The weather was kind to us over the time, but the images of Fermanagh in particular went out over that period of time were just exceptional. I suppose the difference from us as a tourist board in 2013 compared to 2012, in 2012 we were driving most of the events that took place. In 2013 we are more in a support role, supporting with a range of other partners those events. So G8 was right across government, as you're aware. In terms of what the tourist board did, we developed a unique web portal for the year. We undertook a bespoke marketing campaign around Fermanagh. We organised the Belfast Media Centre because there was a media centre at Killyhevlin in Enniskillen, but we also organised the Belfast Media Centre, and we organised a major gala reception at Castlecool for the world media around Northern Ireland food and Northern Ireland entertainment, which was really well received by the media. And we also undertook a series with Fermanagh Council of gateway promotions to make sure that people actually received a very warm welcome when they got to Fermanagh. I suppose the legacy, because whatever we do, we always look for legacy value. We have our major travel trade event, which we call Meet the Buyer, is going to Fermanagh and going to Lochgarten Resort next month. So that's, I guess, a message from us to overseas operators. You've seen the world leaders there last year. Now, please, you can sell this part of the world in terms of overseas promotion. World Police and Fire Games, Catherine was on the board of that, representing the NITB on the board of that. But again, I think the event went exceptionally well. 7,000 athletes, coming from over 60 countries throughout the world. But really, more than anything else, I think creating a real buzz around Belfast in particular. In terms of the economic benefit from a tourism and hospitality side, the average length of stay was in excess of 10 nights, so that was really good value. But again, it again emphasised our credibility for hosting major events and delivering major events from a range of partner organisations. The UK City of Culture, well, again, that built on a lot of the capital investment that had taken place in Derry over the preceding years. From our perspective, probably from the industry's perspective, it got off to a reasonably slow start, I have to say, but it did really build up momentum throughout the year, and probably kicked off with the Radio 1 big weekend in May last year, but then it really accelerated, I think. We funded 5 major events in the city, but we also continue to fund other events like Halloween. So the events that we as the tourist board funded were the Return of Colm Kill, the Gold City Tattoo, the FLA, the Turner Prize and Lumiere. Those are the big 5 events that we as a tourist board put our money into. We also undertook, as we do with all events, a range of support activities. So, for example, we did World Host Training, and Derry was just announced recently as the first UK city to achieve World Host status, and that was on the back, I think, of everything that we put in the previous year in 2013. We also worked with Tourism Ireland around a programme of media visits. We undertook again a specific campaign for Derry during the year. And again, some of the capital investments that we'd started many years earlier came to fruition in 2013, notably the Guildhall development, but also the completion of the Wall City lighting strategy took place in 2013 as well. So I suppose overall, I'd say in terms of Derry Londonderry last year, I think more than anything else, the city's come out of last year with a really increased level of confidence. I think if you go up there, and our board were up there some months ago, you just actually feel the confidence in the city has given them a renewed sense of confidence to move on, which is really crucial now. Finally, the final event I was going to talk about was the Giro, which comes this year. The Giro d'Italia comes next month. Not next month, the month after. It just feels like next month, early May. I suppose for us, there are several aspects that we want to achieve through that. First of all, it's one of the largest sporting events in the world. People probably don't realise just how big this event is. Second biggest cycling event in the world, but one of the biggest sporting events in the world. So again, if we can deliver this, and we do believe we actually will deliver it exceptionally exceptionally well. It'll add again to our credibility for major events, really going back to MTV back in 2011 to 2012 and continuing that on. But it's also a major opportunity for showcasing Northern Ireland to the rest of the world. And the media coverage, and especially when you think a lot of the media coverage will be helicopter shots, that will showcase a lot of the investment around Titanic, the Giant's Causeway, the Causeway Coastal Route, Armagh and St Patrick's Country that we've put money into. So it's really, in many ways, showcasing the investment that has gone in over the last number of years to the rest of the world. Although the race itself is 3 days, we actually say the event is 4 days because the opening ceremony takes place on the Thursday. Friday takes place is a time trial starting off at Titanic and mainly here in Belfast. And then the Saturday really is Belfast to Belfast via the Causeway Coastal Route. And then the Sunday kicks off in Armagh and goes through to Dublin. So Northern Ireland has the lion's share of the event. We would say all but 4 hours take place in Northern Ireland out of the 4 days. So it gives us a huge opportunity. We're working very closely with a whole range of partners. The PSNI have been terrific. Road Service has been terrific in terms of actually making this event happen, because logistically it's quite complex, as you can imagine, over the extensive geography that you're actually making this event happen over. Local authorities have come in behind again, and they're organising local events programmes, local festival programmes. We've identified with them a number of key hubs along the route that will actually, where the public will be directed to watch, but also there can be local entertainment, there can be toilet provision, cafe provision, all that sort of stuff over the 4 days. The race itself is owned by an Italian company called RCS. They choose the route, they do all the logistics. They've employed a local provider called Shadetree here in Ireland to really organise the logistics of the race. Our role, I guess, is to making sure that we lever as much benefit from the race as possible and get as much economic benefit from it as possible. But I think just from the committee's point of view, I really want to stress just the number of people who are involved in this, everything from the health department through ambulance provision to PSNI to ourselves. There's just a whole raft of people who are working together to make this happen. And I guess in summary, really, I think that has been the success of the events programme over the last number of years. It's really brought people together, and I think event organisers going away say everyone work together to make our event happen better than anywhere else in Northern Ireland. That's our aspiration for the Giro this year. In terms of where we go with events, we have produced a future event strategy that was signed off by our minister some months ago. I suppose we're trying to categorise events into 4 main areas. The first one is what we would call global events, and those are really the Giro type event, the MTV type event, that really profile Northern Ireland to the rest of the world, bring huge economic benefit. And our aspiration is to have at least one global event every single year as we move forward. And we're already in negotiations with events right up to 23 at the moment, but try to fill those gaps. So that's our aspiration. Our aspiration is also to set up an event bidding group with key partners, people like Derry City Council, Belfast City Council, Sport NI, Arts Council, so that we're working much more in partnership around how we actually bid for events in the future. So that's the first category. The second category really is international events, and those are really our events that can profile Northern Ireland again to the rest of the world. It probably divides into 2 main categories. Those that, what you might call our standard international events, Northwest 200, Ulster Grand Prix, Milk Cup, events like that, Belfast Festival, Queen's, the Fila. Those are events that we're trying to not just put money into, but put business support in as well to make those events sustainable over the longer term. So it's actually almost a supportive role to make them sustainable long term, and how they improve not just as you might say as customer attractors, but also improve as businesses, essentially, because we're actually trying to get them to take a business focus for the future. And then we have events, international events that go through an open call, where people come in, people like the Golf Challenge at Galgorm, for example, come in that. Third category is what we call national events, which are smaller events. They often are more local, more regional, but they have the potential long-term to grow into become major events. I suppose in summary, the event strategy is trying to move us from what you might say a reactive process where somebody puts an application into us for an event to taking a much more proactive approach to actually how we actually can stimulate events with other partners. And we've identified what we call a number of experience pillars, things like living legends, to build a Northern Ireland brand on for the future. And we're trying in each of those pillars to underpin those with at least 1 or 2 major events. So if you take Living Legends, in our world, the Titanic Festival here in Belfast has the potential to become an event that people around the world could associate with Northern Ireland. It's not there at the moment, but it could be for the future. We also think around St Patrick's, Saints and Scholars. That's an event that could be developed from scratch and could actually be developed into a major event that would actually profile Northern Ireland to the rest of the world. So that's where we're trying to get to. And I just finally say, Chairman, in summary, the events function came to us several years ago. I think it's worked really well, especially not the integration with everything else we do, because the integration with marketing, the integration with business support and skills development is really what will underpin events for the future. Because in our world, events cannot stand on their own. They have to be integrated with every other aspect of the tourism experience, and I think that's what part of the success of the last number of years has been. So thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much for your presentation. I'll maybe start off here on the G8. Of course, it got world publicity and the likes. Have you or anyone else, for that matter, on your behalf, assessed the overall cost of the G8? And maybe just, Catherine, before you start, if we can, rather than me coming back and forward on a number of questions, and that's the overall cost, the cost to the north here, and the cost to the tourist board.
Okay, we were only a small partner involved in the delivery of the G8, and we took part in a cross-government initiative. We weren't leading that, so we critically played our part. My understanding is that SIB had appointed somebody to do the evaluation, the research and the evaluation, and we haven't seen that report come out yet, so we don't have that.
All right, so we could probably get sight of that. That's okay. And you mentioned earlier there a Meet the Buyer event to assess the legacy of the G8. Now, first of all, is there a legacy? Secondly, what is that legacy?
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, my minister asked all her departments to give her a legacy plan last August, which was just after the event. So we actually wrote, from a tourist board point of view, our legacy plan, which includes, obviously greater promotion of Fermanagh, as a key part of the G8. The one tangible aspect, say, is taking our Meet the Buyer to Fermanagh next month. Because that will actually bring overseas operators from around the world to see where the G8 was. But we're actually working on a range of other initiatives with Fermanagh, some of which are reasonably confidential around events at this stage. But
I'm trying to get a handle as what would you call the legacy of the G8?
Well, we're trying to make the profile of the G8. I suppose in our,
I'm sort of trying to get legacy. Legacy to me means one thing.
Yes.
I'm not talking about the profile. The profile can contribute to legacy.
No problem.
I'm trying to establish what exactly you would have in your mind as the tourist board, the legacy of the G8.
Well, I suppose at the moment, Fermanagh, if you look at Fermanagh's market, currently 75% of Fermanagh's market is within Northern Ireland. Actually, if you go and talk to the resort at Loch Earn, they'll say 75% of their business comes from Belfast and Lisburn at the moment. So we need to try and profile Fermanagh on an international stage. So part of the legacy of the G8 is actually to up Fermanagh's market profile in other markets that it's not currently competing in, including the Republic of Ireland, is that. So we're using the G8, and some of the operators that are coming to Meet the Buyer, about 20 of them that are coming next month, are coming from the south. The rest are coming from the rest of the world. So we're trying to say to those operators from around the world, because I think Fermanagh overall, in this market base, is very much highlighted on the domestic market currently.
Maybe I'm not explaining myself right. If, say, I was one of the buyers coming
Yes.
from abroad, right, and you were explaining to me this is the legacy of the G8,
Yes.
what would you be saying to them?
Well, what we'd ask them to do, if they're not currently profiling Fermanagh in their tour programme, can they profile Fermanagh in their tour programme for the future? Because at the moment, I say Fermanagh's market is heavily domestic, heavily Northern Ireland orientated. So how do we get more international visitors, which is key for Northern Ireland, but also key for the west of the province as well? How do we get more international visitors to come to Northern Ireland? And overseas operators programming those areas on the back of the G8 is one way to do that. So it's using the profile that was achieved through the world leaders to actually say, can you now begin to sell this to your customers?
And what would you determine to be that profile?
Well,
In
I think
other
the
words,
profile, what I think G8 is.
I'm just sort of not putting words in your mouth, but there's the G8. We had the G8.
Yes.
This is the profile. This is the legacy of the G8.
Yep.
What would be those 5-6 bullet points which you would determine that to be?
Well, it's around, as you say, it's around golf in terms of Lough Erne, it's around business tourism, because it's around food. So Fermanagh is beginning to change its product, I think. Cruising, which is something I'm working at the moment with Fermanagh, has actually gone pretty well downhill over the last decade and a bit. So how do you actually widen the product base, and how do you widen the market base? So how do you get Fermanagh being more resilient, more year-round business, less reliant on the domestic market, looking for new products, whether that's activities, whether it's business tourism, which it doesn't do a lot in at the moment, but can do more. That's things like conferences, meetings, incentive travel, as well as leisure business, because leisure is still its core. So you're changing the focus of Fermanagh through having an international profile from G8. And if you talk to the tourism industry in Fermanagh, they say even since the G8 has taken place, when they go and talk even to people in the Republic of Ireland, they say, oh yes, that's where the G8 was. So it's now created an awareness in the customer's mind. It needs to be created into business.
And that awareness to be translated into the legacy. So are you reliant upon the people in Fermanagh to determine what that legacy is, or have you got broad thematic areas yourselves that determines or points in the direction as to what that legacy might be?
A bit of both, because we work with them. So we have like a destination Fermanagh plan that we've done with the council, with Fermanagh Tourism, with the industry in Fermanagh. So we have key priorities that we want to focus on.
Is this since the G8?
It was probably passing around the time of the G8. The plan was in place, but we're now working with them.
Sorry, was it developed before then the G8?
Yes, some of it was. The plans have been in place, but the plans are constantly revised. They're revised every year.
Right. Well, maybe not go any further than that one. Well, move over to Mrs. Overend, Sandra.
Oh, but where was I asking about the Giro? But that's fine.
Why no, it's on the Giro.
Or you wanted to move on to the Giro at this
Yep.
stage. That's fair enough.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. As a keen cyclist, I'm excited about the Giro d'Italia, of course, but not as a professional cyclist, I must stress. And I think there's a lot of interest about the Giro d'Italia. Could you tell us a bit about the promotion of the event, and really give us some detail on how you're promoting it, how far across the world it's being promoted, etc., and how many visitors you're expecting, etc., that sort of thing?
Okay, the last question, Sandra, which is the number of visitors, is 140. The economic appraisal for the event is 140,000 visitors, of which 42,000 will be out of state. So that's the targets that we've got to work to. I suppose in terms of the promotion, as you're aware, our remit is in Northern Ireland and the Republic. So we commenced a campaign on the Giro about 2 weeks ago, and it'll run right through to the event, both north and south. We rely on Tourism Ireland on GB and overseas promotion. So their remit is to make sure that there is business coming in from GB and overseas, and probably in our view we would see huge potential to get GB cyclists to think about coming to Northern Ireland, but also Europeans, because obviously the key element of cycling that is based on is primarily European. But there's also high awareness because of the sort of Italian connection in the US as well. So there's potential in all those key markets. So we did some work. You probably saw it in the media, but 3 weeks ago with Stephen Roach. Stephen Roach has been. We've employed Stephen Roach as our Giro ambassador, and we had a Hall of Fame event up at the Giant's Causeway, which was the first time the Giro had ever taken a Hall of Fame event outside Italy, and we got really massive profile around the world, and we brought journalists in for that particular event. So we brought journalists in from the Republic, from GB, from Europe into that particular event, and obviously there's high media coverage from the Italian press to that as well. But it is Tourism Ireland's job now to go out and sell the Giro in GB and overseas. And I suppose one of the things that we're anxious is that because of what I said earlier, the bulk of the event takes place in Northern Ireland. We would be very keen to see that the messaging that goes out reflects the fact that the start of the event takes place here in Northern Ireland, in Belfast, and that messaging is not just about going to Dublin, but actually sort of saying the bulk of this event takes place in Northern Ireland as a major message to go out to change our profile again.
Well, in terms of advertising the event, is that going to increase from now on?
Yes. There's we've done a specific Giro ad, which goes out in television, into cinemas, whatever else. We have billboard stuff going out as well, but it will build up from now to the event itself.
Okay. No, that's good to know. It would be interesting to know more about what Tourism Ireland are doing to promote it. Can you tell us anything about it?
I can't tell you too much. That's not being negative towards it. It's we had a presentation to our own board on what we were doing at our last board. We invited Tourism Ireland to come. They couldn't feel a person, but they did give us a presentation for that, which we have that presentation. But they are also involved. There is one of the subgroups that are delivering the Giro has a marketing group, and they are represented in that marketing group as well.
It might be something worth following up with Tourism Ireland, actually, to find out more about that. Because from what I understand, a lot of French and Germans travel to Italy, whenever it happens another year, so they'll be used to travelling. So it'll be more likely that we'll get those sort of visitors travelling to Northern Ireland. And
absolutely,
the potential there is massive.
And also the fact that this year, of the 3 grand starts, which two take place in the UK, the Giro takes place here and the Tour de France takes place in Yorkshire. So there's a big message there in the UK market to profile the Giro as much as the Tour de France, and probably we'd feel a wee bit the Tour de France is getting too much and the Giro's not getting enough yet in terms of the GB market.
What about the legacy then of the Giro? What work's been done to...
Yeah, there's actually a legacy plan that was... there's a steering group that is delivering or overseeing the delivery of the Giro that involves ourselves, our department, PSNI, Department of Education. There's a whole raft of government departments involved in that. Sport NI are involved in that. So from a tourism point of view, obviously from our point of view, we're looking at the tourism benefits, and again, it's back to that profile perception and how we actually maximise the event from that point of view. We've engaged the media here, we've engaged the BBC, we've engaged the Belfast Telegraph in terms of what they can do to get the message out and work with us in terms of partnerships around it. So there's a big profile around perception and media that takes you into the civic pride stuff again, which is a key objective of this year. In terms of visitor numbers, the visitor numbers for this year's event are the ones that I gave you earlier. However, longer term, in terms of the programme for government commitment to double revenue by 2020, we need to get more GB and overseas, especially Europeans. So as a major aspect can come out of this, I think, in terms of actually more European visitors coming on the back of the Giro, and certainly more Italian visitors coming on the back of the Giro longer term. So that's a second legacy aspect. But there's also legacy aspects that are beyond tourism. So Sport NI are leading on the cycling initiative in terms of legacy. So they're looking at how they can work to get more people to cycle to work, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff around health and well-being. Again, you may be aware DRD on the back of the Giro have set up a special cyclist unit to look at how they encompass that, especially here in Belfast. So they're looking at, you probably heard in the news, a new bridge across the Lag in Dornell Park. DSD are putting a cycle pedestrian route in the one that goes just at the back of the Waterfront Hall, that bridge. They're putting an addition onto that. So I have to say, all the government departments have been terrific. DSD have put a lot of money into this in terms of urban renewal along the route, and they put probably somewhere just short of £400,000 into helping us make sure that the route itself is, in terms of urban regeneration, the key centres along the route are being developed. So there's a huge legacy around that. And I suppose really going back to what I said at the start, I think this will build Northern Ireland's credibility up for major events. It gives us another step in the ladder to go bidding for major events. There's a particular event that could come in the back of this, which is called the Grand Fondo, which is Grand Fondo, which is a participation event. And the Giro, it would have a Giro brand attached to it, and they would only have 10 of these in the world, and we're certainly working with them to see whether we could land one of those 10 here in Northern Ireland. It would have a three-year cycle.
Okay.
I suppose there's another 2 sort of key elements of the legacy it would be worth mentioning, because they're aligned to some of the other events we've had. There's a big volunteer programme for the Giro d'Italia, and that's building on the volunteer programme there was at the World Police and Fire Games last year. So there's been a number of volunteers recruited, and we have invested in putting them through the World Host Training. So we're really building a big bank of volunteers as a legacy out of this to support future events. And the other kind of key area where I think there's a lot of legacy benefit is around what we would call our industry development. So we've had a series of roadshows across Northern Ireland, working with the private sector and those who are going to benefit from having the events in their area, really around their skills and capability and how they maximise those opportunities. So again, that's a legacy that we believe is there for the future, because we're putting in place foundations that will be there for future events that we host in Northern Ireland.
And we will have a finalised, what you could say, legacy plan within a month. it's in pretty well 90% draft at the moment.
No, that's very good. Thanks very much. Can I just ask another wee question on the side? Off-road cycling is there's a big potential there as well. And
Yes.
will you be dropping that into the
Yes.
promotions as
yes.
well?
Because we're very much, that's good, really good point, because we're very much aware that we've put a lot of money into mountain biking especially. So yes, all aspects of cycling.
And that gets them into the West too, of course.
Yes.
Just to add in that I was really pleased to see the bicycle that you're using comes from Mid Ulster, from Sickly Sport in Moneymore, where my constituency is. So I just wanted to add that in. It's great to see it
And
getting
Sandra would
spread
like
out
to go to
across
the event
Northern
as well.
Hopefully you'll buy yourself a new pink bicycle.
Oh, I don't need a new bicycle. I've got one. It's blue, but I'll be wearing pink, sure, maybe.
Hope you heard that. Mrs. Overend wants to go to the event as well.
I'll be bringing the children there, don't worry.
Just on that, previously we were informed that there was a £3 million cost to the event from the department, the fee paid to the promoter. First of all, is that the total cost to the department of the event, Giro d'Italia?
Well, yes, that's the correct figure, and half that was European money. Half of that 3 was European. But the department, are, I guess, through us, are funding aspects that we're doing. So we're funding the stuff that Sandra talked about around campaign stuff, promotional campaign stuff, specifically around the Giro. We're doing some stuff around dressing because we're actually trying to, profile Northern Ireland to the best
So
advantage.
just to get it clear then, is £3 million the total commitment from the department to this event, or is it more than that?
So it's more than that, but 3 million for the event organiser.
Yes.
Bring the event to Northern Ireland. Then the department has given us extra money to lever the event, essentially.
How much more?
It's approximately £1 million over 2 years
Right.
for advertising campaigns, dressing, the volunteer programme. I think it's actually a really important point because for us going forward, particularly for these global events, paying a fee to the organiser is not going to deliver the event. You have to activate around that event for Northern Ireland to actually lever the benefits from any event there is. And so I suppose what we've learnt over the last number of years is that yes, you pay the fee to get the event here, but then you need to invest in activation. And thirdly, coming out of that, which has been mentioned today, is you need to have a legacy plan. So we need to, whatever we're attracting needs to have a legacy and build in for the future.
It is quite a key point, as Catherine said, because there's no point in bringing the event unless you lever it. You lever the benefits from it.
No. Just then, in paragraph 4, it states that when the big start was held in Amsterdam in 2010, it generated an economic return of €7.4 million. Have you any anticipated projections as to what you're working to as a return for here?
Yes, we have. Well, actually funny, we're just saying, it's in the little booklet we gave you, it's 2.8, which we think actually is low. We were just saying that we think we can exceed this, but it is set on the basis that, as you'd be aware, Amsterdam has a very strong cycling tradition. The Dutch have a very strong cycling tradition. So we set our targets reasonably low, but we are confident we will well exceed those.
So, with the investment of $4 million, you expect to generate a $2.8 million return?
Yes, but there will be huge media coverage. The media coverage will be in excess. The media coverage really is the key thing for us here. It's changing the profile of Northern Ireland internationally.
And the value of that is, from the business case, is £10 million. So
Sorry, the value of what, Catherine?
the advertising. So, not
Just
the
on that,
advertising,
how
sorry,
do you
the
kinda-
PR that generated from the event.
Well, just on that, and I've noted, I've looked at your figures there as well. How do you assess the value of PR? Is it column space? And how do you equate that? Because
There's established.
obviously there could be a few MLAs here saying what are they worth in PR value then, you know?
Well, we would use industry standards and industry established methodologies. So there is a value that is placed on any article that we don't pay for these articles, but anything that's written gets what we would call a weighted PR value or an advertising equivalent value. And so the Giro d'Italia is expected to generate in excess of £10 million worth of advertising equivalent value in international press.
I mean, it's going to be beamed over 170 countries, and 800 million people will see this. So, the exciting thing from our point of view is, as I said, it's mainly helicopter coverage, and the route itself, covering Titanic, covering the Causeway Coast, covering Armagh. I think it'll be a really scenic aspects of Northern Ireland that we can use longer term. So it's not just like using it this year, it's using it for the long term.
Okay. Very briefly on
Just
this.
sorry,
Very
a quick
very
question just on the Italia. Obviously, most of the spectators from Northern Ireland will be seeing this along the road
Yes.
as it sails by.
Yep.
But like the northwest, there's a pit area,
on this year.
and I'm sure it will be the same for a bicycle race.
Yes.
Is there any way that we can tap into that to open that up?
Yes.
Same way as the northwest, where spectators from Northern Ireland can actually walk and browse around, because a lot of the enthusiasts maybe will not see anything like this again.
Well, I suppose the difference, maybe I should have said at the start, the difference in this event from many others is it's free and it's total public access, so people can really get up close to the riders. So as you say, there is an opening event. The opening event will be around Titanic, and it'll be totally free, total access, but there will be what's called a signing on at City Hall on the Thursday, and we're going to change the name of it rather than being signing on. It's going to be the opening ceremony, because we think that people understand opening ceremony a little bit more. And again, that's an opportunity that will be free but ticketed due to health and safety. I think the capacity is around 5,000-6,000, but don't quote me on that. Around that, and then on the Friday, there'll be a practice on the Friday morning, but really the whole Titanic area will be free public access, where you can get really up close to the riders. And again, that'll be the same on the Saturday and the same on the Sunday at Armagh as well. So it'll be very much, it'll be unlike other events where you've got world class sports people. You can just go up and touch them.
They walk through the crowd. So they actually create a whole, what they call a start village, which will be down on the Titanic slipways, which will have, they'll have food, entertainment, and they'll have all of the warm-up areas where the cyclists are, so you can go stand next to them and have your photograph taken. So it's very much open and free access for anybody to go everywhere.
Okay, good.
Okay, right, Paul. We'll come over to Miss Fearon. Megan now.
On the Giro, so it's actually just a pretty localised parochial issue. I'm delighted that it's going through Armagh and parts of South Armagh and right to Dublin. But just a quick question, firstly, around the audience. Is that 800 million a realistic expectation?
Yes. It's based on
10% of the world's population.
It's based on previous. That's the amount of people. I mean, this is huge. And funny enough, I'll just give you one anecdote here. You may know Terry Ahern, who's the chief executive of the Northern Ireland Environment Agency, who happens to be an Australian. He actually says when he was in Australia, all his staff would sit up during the night to watch this event. Because there's so much interest in this event. And I think and he almost said they're not cycling. They're not cycling people at all. They just enjoy watching the scenery of where this event takes place, and that's really more the attraction than anything else. So yes, it's based on previous analysis by RCS of the distribution of this. They will do deals around the world in terms of television coverage, for the event and where they will stream it to. So that is, I think,
there's television rights for 174 countries, so it will be broadcast live to 174 countries.
And increasing.
And that has an audience reach of 800 million.
Just on it, well, I sincerely hope that it will attract that many. It is going through my area, and we've been having local meetings with organisations and local people who are interested in exploiting this and exploiting the opportunities that will come from it. But it would be good if locals were aware of the script that was going to be given to the commentators and camera shots for the area, so that it could be highlighted locally and people could organise events and really take advantage of that. Is that something you'd be working on with local councils? Or?
Well, we've done a series of roadshows with local councils about a month ago. We did all the local councils, including Armagh. So we've done, and those events have actually been really well attended. So we've had at least 100 people at every single event that we did, which is terrific. In terms of scripts, yes, there will be commentator scripts, and I suppose really the aspect of this is the fact that the commentators will be mainly in a helicopter. So, for example, let's do this for Paul. If you're going up past Ballymena, they will be able to, in their script, they'll be given a GPS position for Slemish, for example. So the cameras from the helicopters will be able to beam in much more along the route. So yes, the commentators will have scripts and all the major things. And I suppose what we're trying to do through the local councils is attract people to be as innovative as possible, because the more innovative things you can do, the more likely you are to get coverage. And there's really some very strong innovative ideas coming forward. But the downside, we're saying to people, be innovative, but don't always expect that you'll be covered. So if you're going to turn your grass pink, you may get coverage, but the chances are, do it anyway, because it'll all add to the profile of the event.
Have any of those roadshows been with Newry and Moran Council? Because it's going through part of it.
Yes.
The Ring of Gullion, obviously, we're going to.
Every single council that's involved in the route has had a roadshow. But actually, quite interestingly, a number of the councils actually joined together for the roadshows on the basis of the new council boundaries. But that was their choice. So, for example, we won in Ballycastle, but that covered Coleraine, Moyle as well as part of that.
All right. All right, thanks, Megan. Mr. McKinney.
I'd like to touch on two of the subjects and continue with the Giro. And while at first glance it might not appear so, I've been a keen cyclist. I don't really like cycling on roads, and I find that separate cycle pathways are fairly limited. So looking forward then, and in the context of what you're talking about in 2020, trying to double revenues, etc., what's going to attract a cyclist to here if they don't want to cycle on roads? And is there a case for intergovernmental thinking around this? And if there is a case, how advanced is it? And what kind of revenues are projected for making it happen?
Well, I suppose in a way, Fergal, it's been led by DRD, so that they, as I said, on the back of this, have set up a cyclist unit within DRD to specifically look at this. And you probably heard stuff recently in terms of Belfast, especially in terms of having more cycle lanes within Belfast. So yes, it is part of the legacy, but it's not been led by us, it's been led by DRD. And I think Belfast City Council are also heavily into this in terms of the future of the city.
But did you use the tours? Obviously, I'm asking you use the,
yes, I know.
With your eye on the tours. Are you satisfied? Are you getting, is your demand being met? Or are you putting a demand for it at this stage?
Well, I suppose DRD's is really, as you say, it's off-road, but it's largely on-road in a way, in that sense. Our investment has gone much more into things like mountain biking, where we do see this potential. So the stuff around Kilbrony, Castlewellan, Blissingburn, all those sort of developments.
Yeah, but obviously Giro was focusing on a different type of cycle. So where are you on that?
Well, I suppose the main one we're working on is the one I mentioned to Sandra, which is the Grand Fondo, which again we're trying to work with RCS to make sure that we are one of the 10 chosen Grand Fondos. So that'll be our next
What would you
approach.
need? Infrastructurally, what would you need for that?
Largely, not it'll be on roads. So
yeah. But the roads get cleared for all these events.
Yes.
So I'm your Joe Blogg cycler. I don't like cycling on roads, and I want to come over. It's not attractive to cycle on roads, and never mind that, the roads won't be cleared for me.
Yes.
So what sort of infrastructure can I look forward to in Northern Ireland in 2020?
We have a number of tour operators who operate cycle holidays in Northern Ireland, and they put a lot of their time and effort and investment into determining routes which will take people off the beaten track, and they will do them either self-guided or they will provide a tour guide to go with them, and their businesses are doing extremely well, and they're getting a very high demand for that.
Is your assessment that we have sufficient cycle pathways?
Well, I think it's a combination between having cycle pathways for the leisure cyclist who is maybe somebody who lives in Northern Ireland and wants to go out on their bike, but also having routes and itineraries for people who are going to come in as tourists and as cycle tourists. And we have a scheme as well that we've been running through quality accreditation that's cycle friendly for accommodation providers, so where they can.
No, I get your point to know what you're doing, and clearly you're pushing in that direction, but I can see you're looking for more people to come here, more people to be cycling here.
Yep.
Well, we clearly don't have sufficient infrastructure now. And what, from a tourism perspective, what's your ask of DRD when you sit down with them in terms of future provision? Or are you not asking?
Well, truthfully, we're probably not asking enough at this stage. To be truthful, we're probably not, and it probably does need. I know we work very closely with Outdoor Recreation Northern Ireland, who are developing a series of these, so that'll be our main way into this sort of development. And it's not probably answering your question fully, but we've done things. We put money into things like Lapaloch around Loughney, for example. Again, part of that's on roads. So, but I think there's a big opportunity around. We're working with Forest Service, and a lot of the stuff that we've done to date. But we can do more with Forest Service, and we can do more in terms of some of the linear stuff along canals and whatever else that have taken place. So yes, we can do more.
It would just be, and I appreciate your honesty in that regard, but at the same time, people won't make decisions unless there's an honest, future-proofed assessment made of what the demand's likely to be. So I would urge that some assessment could be done in that regard.
Have you any thoughts on where we could be looking at for that.
Personally, I mean, I use, or have used, I keep saying that, have used, it has been a wee bit, but I mean, and I can't, no, I don't want to do it from a personal perspective.
No, just thoughts.
Fairly fair. But clearly roads, you take Belfast roads, for example, take the Newtownards Road, it's now 4-laned for traffic.
Yep.
It is unsuitable for cycling,
Yep.
yet there's no room really for adding more cycle.
Well,
But to be honest with you, I think a deep assessment of what the tourism need for the future would be, and how you would encourage more people, because there are going to be health benefits here as well.
Yes.
And I just urge some joined-up government thinking around this to have a rigorous assessment of what the tourism demand would be, and what the local demand would be, and what the provision could be. Obviously, in a city like Belfast or Derry, where there's bigger populations, then there might be a different approach to it. There are some railway tracks, for example, that could be opened up, particularly around Craigavon, and down around Newry there are railway tracks as well, and canal pathways that could be opened up further. So those are just off the top of my head, but with some rigorous analysis, I'm sure that some more could be.
You know, where the canal, like, you know, between Portadown and Newry, Banbridge Council are putting in new stuff at Scarva and whatever else. So yes,
Come Greenway.
yeah, the Greenway and obviously
But
Consort.
I think we're agreeing
Consort as well.
that some proper
Yep.
analysis and interrogation.
No, it's a good point.
Before we move on to the G8,
Just, Fergal, can we just, what's going to be done about that? Is there a scoping exercise happening?
Well, I'll take that back from
Because
today.
we're just having a chat
and
here.
We'll build that into the legacy plan.
Ourselves here about the disused railway tracks and the likes of that. There's a plethora of those
there are.
right across the country.
Yes.
And actually, that can be amended at reasonable cost.
Right.
And the Cumber Greenway was done for very little money
Yeah.
overall, and yet it provides a very good.
Yes.
Well, if you take the whole thing from Belfast right out, 12 miles or something like that, and it's well used. As I say, sitting on the health committee as well, promoting health benefits is a big.
There's probably opportunities there for us and Sport NI and the RD.
That's something I've raised before. Sorry, Chairman, and a lot of the old railway lanes are now in private ownership, you know, and that's where a difficulty lies. So it would have to be, analysed.
Can you come back to us with
Yes,
that?
it's not impossible.
Yep.
And just
Yeah,
before,
Fergal, your second point.
yes, yeah. How do you make your grass pink?
Well, I'm not quite sure because I was talking to Queen's. I'll give you an example, and I was trying to encourage Queen's because that's one of the routes that goes through on the Friday night, and they were looking at how they could do something on the lawns. Now, whether they actually turn the grass green or whether they just put a cover over it, but I will let you know. I'll come back on that one. I'll come back on that one as well.
Okay, thanks very much. I'm looking forward to this event, and I think it'll be a big boost for us all.
I think it'd be good, really. I was talking to actually Noel Thompson the other day, BBC, and he was asking where the best place to watch it was, and I said, well, the professional cyclists actually say the best place to watch it on the Fridays here at Stormont.
All right. I thought you were going to say the armchair there for a second.
No, they say the hill.
helicopter show.
Or in the helicopter.
Or in helicopter.
Okay.
Can I just return to the G8 then? You know, you've talked in a broad sense about the benefits to Fermanagh. How have these benefits been assessed?
G8. The G8, there'll be an economic appraisal in G8.
Yeah, as I said, the SIB appointed somebody to do the full evaluation and post-project on the project, and we haven't seen that final report yet. So, and that will look at the benefits, I suppose, not just for Fermanagh, but for the whole of Northern Ireland.
And specifically for Fermanagh and from a tourism perspective then, have you put a number on the tourism numbers and income that you project beyond 2013?
Specifically on Fermanagh?
Yeah.
No, we haven't broken it down specifically on Fermanagh, but we are working with all the regions, and probably our view would be a little bit further that Fermanagh has lost a bit of market share, has lost market share. So Fermanagh themselves, I think they have set targets through the destination plan that I spoke to Patsy about. There are targets there in terms of market share, that they would increase their market share.
If I recall, Destination Fermanagh was done well ahead of
Yes.
and not with sight of
Yes.
the concept of
Yes.
G8. So, so why not Why have you not done a specific Fermanagh thing, given...
Oh, well, it has been refreshed now.
I don't know that, but I'm
Yes.
sorry, I'm talking about your analysis of future numbers and revenue for Fermanagh.
We have overarching targets at our level. We have overarching targets for Northern Ireland in terms of growth in visitor numbers and revenue that are laid out in the programme for government. And obviously, aligned to that, we have to make sure that there's a good regional spread in terms of what we do. So events is one of the areas where we will be investing in the likes of Samuel Beckett Festival. Alan mentioned some of our international events. How do we actually grow that to become a major attractor for Fermanagh at that time of year? That will raise its profile and bring people in. But we don't break our visitor number. Our visitor numbers and our spend targets down to a regional level.
I mean, at local level, the responsibility in the draft tourism strategy is with local councils at local level to work with other partners, including obviously the private sector. It's their role on the back of the national targets, for the Northern Ireland targets, to set their own targets at a local level. But we will work with them in those, Fergal.
Yeah. But I think, I mean, we're looking at this obviously in the context of G8
Yes.
and the opportunities that would have emerged from there.
Yes.
And not to hear specific tourism numbers and revenue on the back of the Fermanagh experience vis-a-vis the G8.
Yep.
It's a bit worrying for me that you haven't done that.
Well, it's maybe not so much the figures. I mean, we're continuing to invest. You know, we've just approved, you know, a first sum of money into the Enniskillen Museum complex. You know, so we're continuing to invest in Fermanagh. We'll continue to invest in Fermanagh. A lot of that is justified on the back of the G8 potential, because it opens up obviously the potential for much more event space in the centre of Enniskillen. Also, it gives a gateway to Fermanagh. That's the whole complex is actually about a gateway to Fermanagh. So it's not just about what you might say visitor numbers, but to say Fermanagh have set targets, mainly market share targets, around their future plan, and we will work with them on that plan. So it's not as if we have one set of targets and they have another. We actually work with them on the plan, the targets that they have.
You've undertaken some research into the positive impact, and you said that there's been a positive impact. Can you share the research with us?
From the G8 specifically, we've only assessed what we have generated in terms of advertising equivalent value PR on the island of Ireland, but that research, I'm assuming, will be made. It's not our research. It's been done through the G8 steering group and through someone who was employed through SIB. So I'm sure that information, when it's available, will be widely available to all partners.
Yeah, but I'm just reading your paragraph. Research undertaken by NITB demonstrated a positive perception of the impact of the event.
Yes.
That was around things like our own media monitoring of what coverage we got within the island of Ireland.
So there was nothing done specifically around the Fermanagh. Those paragraphs were in the context of G8 and in the context.
Yeah,
I'm reading
yes,
it.
yes.
There's you can see where I'm coming from here. It certainly looks like you'd done some scoping.
We supported the overall evaluation by doing some, I think, visitor attitude, because we do a visitor attitude survey every year. So I think we supported the overall evaluation and fed into that in terms of asking people who were here what their experience was. And people who were living in Fermanagh what their experience was. And so we collected some information that will then have become part, or we would have fed into the overall evaluation. So when it talks about that there being a positive perception, those questions that we were asking people on the ground, we were able to feed back in that respect. But that's only one small element of the overall evaluation.
But we can give you our bit.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, we can
please.
give you our bit.
Okay.
And then just back, I know the Chair mentioned, and I appreciate the time, the Meet the Buyer event.
Yes.
Who's coming and how can we assess the value from that?
Well, we have we call it a bit like speed dating. It's where we set up appointments, we bring in overseas operators, and then we also have Northern Ireland suppliers, and then they have 15-minute appointments throughout the day, so they can do business.
And who are they? I mean,
The overseas?
yeah, is there well, let's not go down into specifically who are the numbers of them that come.
Yeah, it's about 120, of which about 20 are from the south, the rest are GB overseas.
And typically then, post Meet the Buyer, How does an area benefit or here benefit? What's the calculation done on?
Two ways, I guess. The first one is this is the first time for a number of years that this event is held north and south. So we do the one, Northern Ireland Tourist Board does the one in Northern Ireland, Faulty Ireland do the one in the south. This is the first time for a number of years that they're coming to Northern Ireland first. Normally they go to Dublin first, then they come, or Dublin or Killarney, normally it's been, then they come to us, but this time they're coming first to Northern Ireland. So we will have over the weekend, the event takes place on a Monday. Over the preceding weekend, we'll be running familiarisation visits for those people throughout Northern Ireland. So even though they're in Fermanagh, they can choose to go on a Titanic tour, they can do a Causeway Coast tour, they can do a Fermanagh tour, whatever else. So part of it is actually making them aware of what the local product is in terms of their programming. And then secondly, during the event itself, they have the opportunity to have 15-minute appointments with Northern Ireland businesses. As a result of that, then there'll be follow-up. Mainly by Tourism Ireland will do follow-up on did they programme Northern Ireland in a year's time. Now, it won't happen overnight because these guys are often working 2 years ahead in terms of their programming and their tour programme. Did they programme? Are we getting more Northern Ireland programmed, more Northern Ireland product programmed in their operator tour brochure, whatever else? So that's generally how you assess it. You can do some assessment with Northern Ireland suppliers, but because of the length of time some of this stuff takes to come through, it can be 6 to 26 months you're talking about. It's difficult to be truthful. You ask them, did they find the event useful? We do some evaluation. Did they find, will they put extra business in? We do parameters like that, but you don't actually know until several years actually did it pay benefit.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Anderson, Sydney.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alan and Catherine, for coming along today to the committee meeting. Just quickly on the Giro d'Italia, in relation to guest houses and B&Bs and things, what work, because I have been asked about this, what work have you done to work with those people and getting custom into their businesses?
Well, the main thing we've done really is the regional roadshows. So they will be invited to all the regional roadshows we did, really highlighting to them what the business opportunity is. So we've invited tourist attractions, because there's obviously, like any major event like this, will have an element of disruption as well as many positive benefits. So we've tried to make them aware, especially those on the Causeway Coast on the Saturday, that there will be a rolling road closure on the Saturday along the Causeway Coastal route. So we have to let businesses know that from a point of view of their planning, but also from a coach operator point of view. If you're running your coach tour up the Causeway Coast, you need to know that there will be road disruption on that Saturday. So we've communicated widely to tourism businesses, but the opportunity really is primarily around the regional roadshows. So they've been invited to all the regional roadshows.
Did you find, the reason I'm asking this question is that a lot of specific points, let's say Belfast and North West and so forth, but some B&Bs thought that maybe more work could have been done to when those people are here to see the road race, that they could have stayed here, and was it promoted in such a way that maybe it would have encouraged them to stay longer here?
Well, it's still happening. It's not over. So the opportunity's still there.
It's still rolling out.
Yeah, the opportunity's there, very much so, because a lot of these people will be independent, and independent cycling fans, to be truthful, will go to this. So there's an opportunity for any business to that's what the toolkit's about. Toolkit's about how you actually can exploit this for your business.
Yeah.
So the opportunity is, to do something special in terms of your business, to get online, to link into this, and
you have helped them through your roadshows, through the roadshows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there a big uptake?
Well, every single roadshow, we probably had a minimum of about 100 folk at.
We do over 700 in total across Northern Ireland.
Would you consider that good?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Very good.
Compared to others,
Yeah, and also we've engaged in all those roadshows. We engaged the local media as well. So everywhere we went, the local media came along, and they covered the roadshows extensively in the local press as well as other press.
Okay, can I move to the World Police and Fire Games of 2013? Paragraph 15, you mentioned direct economic impact of the games. That was some region of some 7.3 million. Can we maybe get some more detail on that and how this was measured?
The World Police and the World Police and Fire Games was obviously primary responsibility of DECAL. So there was a company set up to deliver the games. That was done through independent evaluation, and I'm not sure what the exact methodology is, but we could certainly find out for you. It would be consistent with the methodology that we would use to evaluate our events.
So I'm also interested in who benefited the most in this. So would that be in that evaluation as well?
Yeah,
Or
I
could
mean,
you answer that?
a lot of the benefit was where at the venues and around the venues. So there were a number of events held across different places in Northern Ireland, but obviously the hub of it was within Belfast. But certainly, I mean, as Alan said at the beginning, this was an event that ran over 10 days. So unlike some events which might be a shorter time scale, there was, and the ice hockey ran for a week prior to that as well. So there was actually 2 or 3 weeks during August last year when certainly the hotels were recording record occupancy levels. The pubs and the restaurants were all reporting huge benefits coming out of the games in terms of their revenue streams.
Okay. Is there an indication in relation to what the indirect benefits, economic benefits have been? Is there any indications there?
Well, I mean, again, I think coming out of the World Police and Fire Games, there's been a lot of a legacy benefit. The volunteer programme has been huge. They had almost 4,000 volunteers, and we, from the Church Board's perspective, supported that programme through providing the World Host training to all of those volunteers. But there's also was a huge schools engagement programme. So they've really been looking at how could they engage with schools and raise the profile of sports and sport participation. And then thirdly, I suppose being able to host games like that again adds to our credibility as a destination when we go to host for future events. So those would be some of the the indirect benefits that come out of it. But civic pride again would be another huge benefit that was driven out of these games, and which is what a lot of these events are about. It's really getting to change the perception of local people and making them feel proud of where they're from. So those would just be some of the ones that I would.
I mean, on the volunteering sort, maybe just saying in terms of, as Catherine said, we build up almost a bank of volunteers throughout these events, and the PSNI will say in terms of Giro, just how much resource is going to save them in actually policing, in quotes, the Giro, but having so many well-trained volunteers, because that will take the resource off them.
Yeah, actually moved ahead. That was would be my next question in relation to the bank of volunteers you have mentioned, and you have expanded, but how would you see those skills, that the benefits they would provide for going into the future? I know you talk about schools and such like, but what are the big benefits really as a legacy here? We've talked a lot about legacy, and I think any event that we run or any event that tourism is involved in or whatever, we're always looking for the benefits of the legacy, maybe more than anything. We have the present event, we get benefit,
yeah.
But I think we're looking for what comes behind it and what are the benefits. So really going into the future, what are the real benefits?
It's probably a bit back to Fergal's point about the Giro. Really, is around. To me, a lot of the cycling event is around health and well-being. So there's been an extensive schools programme ran through the Department of Education on the Giro, and the Giro actually has RCS, the organiser, have an extensive schools outreach programme to encourage kids to take up cycling. Sport NI are also heavily involved in this because they see this as a major stimulus to actually encourage more people to take up cycling as a sport. So that's part of their remit. So there's a huge, I think, health and well-being. Volunteering is part of that as well, I think, because a lot of volunteers are either interested in cycling or are interested in sport, and so it's getting them much more involved in that. And all the volunteers we put through World Host training, so we're actually upping our benefit of customer service as well. So it's not just, are you interested in doing this? We're actually saying you have to go through World Host, so your customer service skills are honed through this process. So it adds to people's saleability for other forms, including employment.
Do you work much with the education sector too?
Yeah, the Department of Education are heavily involved in the Giro.
Right.
Heavily involved. And Dale are heavily involved through the World Host programme. They fund us to deliver the World Host programme for events like this.
And through those volunteers, the 3,600 involved there, heavily involved in the younger people of that?
Yes, there was all ages, to be truthful, in terms of volunteering. But yeah, certainly the schools programme and Sport NI are heavily involved again in the schools programme around Giro.
There was a number of volunteers who were involved in the Olympics who got involved here as well, is that right?
Yes.
Was there a big
There were
percentage?
about 100.
About 100, yeah.
Yes.
Did you expect more in that case? Maybe coming through to the World Police and Fire Games?
I suppose what's more important for us is to build our own base of volunteers.
Your own bank, yeah.
Yeah, so it was good that people who had volunteered at the Olympics wanted to come here. I know that a lot of the volunteers who volunteered at the World Police and Fire Games in Belfast, our own volunteers, have been signing up for Fairfax, which is, they were very keen. And when I spoke to people in Fairfax, they were having to open up their websites years early so that they could register, because they enjoyed the experience of volunteering here so much. They wanted to look at other opportunities of where they could volunteer in the future. So it's been a very
Well, that would be a
positive
legacy in a
experience.
sense as well.
Yeah, and the cycling clubs have been heavily involved in volunteering for Giro. The cycling club, the Northern Ireland cycling clubs, the community have been heavily involved.
I would have to confess, I'm not like Fergal. I gave up the cycling when I got my driving licence as a teenager, and when I go there. But thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Very much,
We'll get you back on your bike before May.
Oh, aye. Especially May the 22nd, eh? We're all having to do that. Mr. Frew.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I want to just keep on the customer service aspect, because you know, you've heard me before talking about how, although we have a beautiful country here and a really friendly people, we do seem to fall short on the customer service, especially in the restaurant clientele that type of experience for tourists, especially tourists come from America, where they're used to being wined and dined and tipped and all that whole service industry over there, how it's maxed out. And to link with Sydney, how can we? Because I understand. Because I must say, I've read some of the blogs in the world, and it is really, really good and positive stuff. And they are saying, and it's independents are saying, that this has been the best organised games throughout the history of the World Fire Games. So that was very, very good, very, very positive. But how do we get? And I can understand how all the volunteers would be so friendly and help out and go that extra mile, because that's just what we do. How do we link that to our hospitality sector? How do we make a difference there?
Well, I suppose you're right in some ways, but I think it's actually the lack of consistency of customer service. Some of it can be very good, but it's the lack of consistency probably that hits people more. I suppose in many ways, Paul, World Host is one way, and we're putting a lot of people through World Host at the moment, which gives, what you might say, an element of customer service. And I think, as I said earlier, we were really thrilled, when Derry became the first UK city to become World Host City, essentially, which is good. And we're also trying to move more people along World Host businesses. So it's not just looking at individuals, but actually looking at how a business can become World Host accredited. It'll only take them so far, but I think we run our own industry development program, so we support the sector. Invest NI supports the sector. Dell supports the sector through an organisation called People First, which is the sector skills. I think what it needs probably is a much more joined up approach towards actually skills delivery. We've been doing a bit of work on that recently. Our board has taken on excuse the pun here, our board's taken on board several initiatives in terms of major barriers, drivers for Northern Ireland tourism, one of which is skills. They had a breakfast session about 6 months ago with a number of people in the industry to talk about how do we get a better coordination. I personally think it needs a much more focus on one skills strategy for the sector, and then out of that saying who is going to deliver what. Of the model we would look at the moment is Scotland, which they've developed a very good, in our view, very good tourism skills sector plan. And it also says where the tourist board will do, what the colleges will do, what the universities will do, what other players will do. So everyone has an accountability, and there seems to be in Scotland a buy-in very much at a senior level politically towards skills right across the agenda, not just in terms of tourism, but tourism is part of that. So I think we need one plan and a delivery mechanism and some accountability built into it.
How do we get that?
Well, I think in fairness that's beginning to happen. We're working currently with People First. They're looking at the Invest NI Collaborative Networks mechanism to try and get that happening. So there is probably greater momentum, to be truthful, over the last 6 months. There's been a sector skills group that's been working for a couple of years now, but there's probably more thrust now to try and get a plan in place and a strategy for skills support, because I do agree with you, it's key.
Again, with regards to, I've been commended you on the friendliness and the organisation of the games. But we had around 7,000 competitors. The one before New York, I know it's a big competitor. They had 17,000 athletes. We had estimated, I think, at a time that we'd have 10,000. So we had set the bar low compared to New York, which is a mountain to climb, I understand. But because we only got 7,000 competitors, athletes, did we fail?
I think that on reflection, that the target was probably set too high, and therefore the Games was a victim of that in the whole run-up to it, particularly around perception. If you actually, it is primarily a North American Games, and if you look at the number of competitors at all of the venues it's been in over the last 20 years or something, it's only ever had more than 8,000 competitors when it's been in North America. So when you look at Barcelona, or you look at Adelaide, or you look at or Melbourne, whatever the one, they were all around the 7,000, 8,000 competitor mark. So I think for Northern Ireland that would have been a much more realistic target, because there would have been a basis for it. I think probably in the target setting it was over ambitious, and I think that's a very key lesson to learn for the future in terms of what we set ourselves up for. I don't think the Games in any way could be deemed to have not been a success, because those athletes did bring with them a number of family and friends when they were here. I think that the benefit of the Games has been significant, as demonstrated through all of the evaluations, and so I think it's unfortunate that the expectation was set, and therefore that created the negative publicity that went with it.
Yes, understand.
You can see we've learned from that from the Giro targets that we discussed earlier, because I do agree with Catherine. I think the expectation of 10,000 athletes then led to 7,000 being seen as not achieving your target, whereas if they'd actually set the target more realistically, about 6 and a bit, and achieved 7, then it would have been much more.
Which is a shame, because it's so well talked of throughout the athletes.
But I think the lesson there is, because we were truthfully at one stage struggling to say where we're going to find accommodation for 10,000, really in the middle of summer, and I think actually achieving 7 and doing it really well and having very high levels of satisfaction was much more of a success.
I think there was an estimate of about 25k visitors came with those competitors. Now, I don't see it in your briefing about how many actually did come. And again, I don't want to tarnish this as a negative question, but have we any estimation of how many people did come?
The original projection was on 10,000 competitors plus with a multiplier of 1.5, which got you to 25,000. I think probably the multiplier was around about 0.5, 0.6 in reality. So
which brings us to a total of
12, 13. Yeah.
And again, I suppose for our future legacy, because what we want to do is get people in, get people out, and have them talking about us.
Yes.
Now that seems to be the case.
Yes.
When they've been here or when they've left, but because we've had a lower number, has that hurt the legacy?
I personally don't think so. I think you're better actually being clear about what you can target and do it well. And I think Northern Ireland's capacity is not to do the 17,000, because I don't think you can cope with it from all A, accommodation, B, infrastructure, transport, all the rest of it. I think you're better actually targeting where your niche in the market is and doing it really well.
I think, as you'll be aware, Dame Mary Peters was the patron for the Games, and she, the World Police Flag Games Federation would say that her association with the Games and the success with how they were delivered in Northern Ireland has actually done a huge amount to improve their brand and their brand perception, and so they are very pleased with what they got out of it. So I think, to answer your question, that's another kind of really positive benefit from our perspective, and I don't think that 7,000 competitors has hurt us, because it's been a real platform for us, and hopefully they'll speak about us for years to come.
Well, I think it's a bit like the Giro. I've said if I had a choice today of having the Giro or the Tour de France, I would choose the Giro, because I think Northern Ireland can actually deliver the Giro far, far better. I think it's much more in line with the Northern Ireland brand. It's seen as being young, forward-looking style. I don't think the Tour is seen that way. So I think, I think you need to be very clear on what you're targeting and actually what benefits will give to you, and not always achieving, the biggest in the world, because the biggest in the world might not suit you, but this might suit you far better, and you can do it far better.
I suppose it can be seen as a building block also,
Yes.
something else to aspire to.
It can.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Well done.
And
Thank you.
then Miss Fearon, Megan, back to the...
Just briefly around the City of Culture. Obviously, it was a very special year for Derry, and us non-Derry folk couldn't help but be slightly envious. And I suppose I was lucky enough to go to Radio 1 big weekend, and I have to say the atmosphere across the entire city the whole time was just absolutely amazing, and there was no trouble or anything. It was just a really good, positive weekend. And I suppose the FLA followed on from that.
Yes.
There was 380,000 people over 8 days, which is absolutely brilliant. Are you planning to support a return of the event to Derry, or?
The flag, yes. I know the City Council are talking about it, and we would certainly be keen on supporting them on that if the flag came back, because I think it was such a success.
Yeah.
So absolutely, but it will be led by the Council. But the Council, I know, had plans to try and get it to come back. Certainly, I know at one stage we're talking about 2016. Whether that's realistic or not, I'm not sure. But we'll be very supportive of that.
And in terms of the legacy then after the City of Culture, how are we working to secure that? And
Again, it's like everything else. They're developing a legacy plan at the moment, and actually I've had several meetings with both the City Council and what's now known as Visit Derry. Used to be Derry Visitor and Convention Bureau over the last couple of months. Both of them are doing plans. Plans are well ahead. We have certain things that we would like to see taking place. There's plans, for example, for a maritime museum on the Ebrington site. We'd be keen on that going forward. We already have major projects underway in Derry, still being delivered. Guildhall we talked about, and I think Visit Derry are upping their game in terms of their own business plan on how they capitalise, both in terms of events but also promotion of the city. So there's good work, I think, underway, but it needs to be brought together a little bit more, I would say.
And on the back of that, are we expecting to see an increase in tourism numbers and
Yes.
or revenue generated through tourism for the city, and
I think
suppose across the north?
Absolutely. It's almost back to Fergal's point. It's grasping the platform really in Derry the way Fermanagh is, and they are developing their plan now. They are beginning to get their act together. But absolutely, Derry should be increasing its business, because it's got about 6% market share at the moment and can do much better than that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Just right throughout the word, I start off with legacy.
Yes.
Has been mentioned, and I've worked closely with the family as well. There is one man that has left us a huge legacy, both nationally and internationally. That was Seamus Heaney.
Yes.
And I do know that there have been numerous visitors down to the graveyard to see the site where he's been buried, and attended the burial and all myself. What is the Northern Ireland Tourist Board doing to help coordinate all that interest, which inevitably has come in the respectful manner that you would expect it to be done, to ensure that people are able to visit the site of his grave, to come to the area, to pay their respects, and to take an interest in the well of his work?
Well, it's a very good question. Don't want to get too technical or jargonistic here. I suppose one of the things that we launched a year ago was, where do we go after the signature projects, essentially? And we talked about creating experiences, so we're trying to stimulate the private sector to take a greater lead in terms of how they create experiences on the ground. And we had our conference about a month ago, and actually, again, that was really well attended. Now, one of the examples we gave in the conference was the various types of experiences you could create. And again, we're very simple people. We tiered it into 3 areas. One is the global experience, things like Titanic, things that will give you international appeal. Second one was actually where you can cluster, a group of businesses can cluster together to do something special. An example we given that was up in Portrush, where a number of businesses, surfing and a couple of the bars, restaurants had worked together to actually develop a cluster in Portrush. Third one was where actually individual businesses could actually expand their business and do something unusual. And one of the examples we gave in that was Eugene and Geraldine Keelt in Magherafelt.
Yeah, I know them well.
And we sort of said, here's an example of what they've done around Seamus Heaney. Other people can do this. So we try to do it through peer examples of saying, here's what you can do in your business. We also use Ray House in Hollywood, who'd done stuff around Titanic. So how you actually just do something more than give a standard bed and breakfast? How do you tie into a theme? So we're working with the industry. That's very much part of our strategy moving forward. How do we get the industry to think broader than just offering bed and breakfast and the way that they have? Because they've tied in, as you know, into Seamus Heaney in terms of the theme of the guest house. Eugene will organise tours, whatever else around Seamus
Just
Heaney.
so that members know, this is not just since his death. Eugene has always done that.
Oh, I know that.
And
Absolutely.
in fact, had invited Seamus to be a guest speaker,
Absolutely.
and then unfortunately he suddenly died on us all.
It's back to that theme of living legends, you know, Titanic,
Yes.
St Patrick, Seamus Heaney, C.S. Lewis. How do you actually tie into those themes in your business, and how do we encourage the private sector to do much more of that?
And that encouragement, I'm just trying to push this wee bit further to see how the tourist board helps share that experience, helps if someone says, because there's been worldwide interest in his unfortunate death. But
not so much in
as
terms
you
of
said, the legacy he has already left us, that huge legacy which will go down in history.
Well, I guess we've used C.S. Lewis, Seamus Heaney as examples of what you can do. So we developed a year ago, we did a toolkit for the industry. Our theme a year ago, I think I maybe told the committee before, we'd look very much as Canada as the best practice example to developing experiences. We did a toolkit a year ago. This year, a year on, it is much more practical in terms of actually, here's some examples that we give the industry of people who are already doing this. You can go out and do this with your business, and you can do it either on your own business, or preferably we would encourage you to cluster with 2 or 3 other businesses. So it's very much putting an accommodation provider, in this case, with either a theme or attraction. Now, what we had hoped to do to support that financially is that we're hoping to launch an innovation fund in May, and that's going through process. And if that innovation fund, if we get that through to launch it in May, then that'll be there to really stimulate that type of initiative from primarily the private sector. Because last time when we had an innovation fund, it was very much public sector, local councils tapping into the money. We would like to see much more private sector people tapping into it for the future.
Right, thank you for that. Just as a bit of a wash over, there's maybe a few issues there. Jim, do you want to take us through them so that you can dovetail with them too?
First of all, suggested to ask the SIB to forward the evaluation of the G8 when it's completed, something the committee can do. To ask Tourism Ireland what work they're doing to promote the Giro. So again, for the committee to do. To ask DETI for an estimated overall cost of Northern Ireland hosting the Giro. And then
is that DETI one just for DETI or cross government?
Cross-government, sure.
Cross-departmental, I would think.
Yeah. And then NITB have agreed to take back the suggestion in relation to linear tracks, including canals and disused railway tracks such as Cumber Greenway.
I'll take it as maybe like a scoping study on how we maximise.
Okay, and finally, NITB have agreed to provide more detail on the impact of the World Police and Fire Games.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, just Sammy, you've just come in there. Just we're about to wind up, but I know you might have had 1 or 2 brief issues. Did you want to raise those now, or?
My apologies, I was doing some work for the Northern Ireland Tourist Board outside. 50 tourists.
I mean, you can be a volunteer.
Did you get an innovation voucher for it? No.
And I just hope I have, this question has been asked, but really just one question on the Giro d'Italia.
Yes.
What sort of support are you getting from Stormont? And have you any suggestions about how we could become more involved? Because certainly one of the things I had thought about is that we seem to have come to this a bit late in the day. And Chair, I was just wondering about even like of a reception. We had a reception for. I don't think there's anything in that plan. Would that be the case at this stage? If we had a reception here for
in Stormont?
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Well, I think so Stormont on the Friday will be one of the major venues. Stormont Estate will be one of the major venues, and I think as some of you may have been in the room when I said, if you talk to some of the professional cyclists, and Darragh McQuaid, who's working with us, Darragh would say if he was going to watch the Friday anywhere, he would choose Stormont Estate to watch it. So I think the estate now is in the process of commissioning an event provider, an event management company, to really organise some form of public event within the Stormont estate. But certainly I think there is an opportunity, especially for MLAs, because bear in mind the you've talked about, the chair's talked about, is coming from the executive to actually be seen to profiling the event, and you've got a prime spot here within Parliament buildings to do something. So there's a big opportunity, I think, for the executive, stroke the assembly, to be actually doing something in terms
Alan,
of.
right in the sense, it's a bit like the World Cup. This will be like the start of the World Cup. This will be the start of the Giro d'Italia here.
Well, there's a guy when we were up in Ballycastle, there was a guy who is like a professional triathlete, and he came along and he tried to explain the Giro to the other people who were there, and he said this is a bit like having the European Champions League in your backyard, was how he framed it, because you can actually touch, you go up and touch the players in this case, or the riders in this case, so it's a bit like that. So, but they're in your backyard, and so this is the scale of this event in his world. So yes, it's absolutely, but you have that much more contact, and it's free.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. And we're
you,
just
Chair.
confirming the date. That would be the 9th.
Yes.
That start.
Yeah, there's a practice in the morning from 10 to 12, a practice, which will be like a real race, and then the event itself will be in the evening.
Well, right as well, for the members as well, that the roads be blocked off, so you need to plan if you're going to be coming.
I know the Stormont Estate is looking at their sort of civil service bank on, you know, how the people get in and out of work, and sort of we're encouraging them to come in and stay. You know?
Okay. That's grand. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you very much
That's
indeed.
been a useful exchange and a few ideas backwards and forwards there. So we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thanks very much.
Thank
to
you.
the committee.
Leave these for you. One is
That's
the
grand. Yes,
event
yeah.
strategy, and the other is the Giro d'Italia toolkit for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We go on to the next agenda item number 5, matters raising. This is from page 23 onwards. We have the Invest. The department has stated that the Invest NI website now has a link to direct users to the Horizon 2020 section of the department's website. And just haven't checked it out. Best bet is to go through Invest NI to try and find that one on the department's website, because as we know, the department's website requires quite a bit of being brought into the 21st century. It's hard to find, very hard to find on the department's website. Okay, next item is the page 24. It's the intelligent energy systems. And page 24 is a draft response to the department regarding intelligent energy systems. Now, quite a bit of work has been put into this by Jim, so if members are content to forward this to the department. Agreed? Agreed. Next item, page 26 then, is the Barossa, the inquiry into the Barossa task force. It's a draft response to the Committee for the Office of First and Deputy First Minister regarding its Barossa task force inquiry. Now, just with one proviso, if we could insert, I was looking at the dates and the likes of that, if we could just insert when the actual correspondence, because you could interpret from this that it took us quite a while as a committee to deal with the correspondence, when in fact it didn't. If we could just insert in it when the correspondence came to the committee for us to deal with it. Just know it was dealt with very sharply and efficiently whenever we got it.
Chair, just at the last paragraph, and just, hope I'm not being too picky here, but as stated earlier, the latter problem was highlighted by desk officers during the committee to Brussels. But are we not saying that it was highlighted by virtue of our interaction with the desk officers? Because it wasn't them that highlighted the problem, it was...
No, we uncovered it.
Exactly.
That's the word. Aye. Right.
Is that fair?
Fair point.
So I just noticed it there.
Okay, with that amendment then, we agreed to forward that to the committee then. Okay, thanks for that. Next item was page 28, correspondence from Richard Bruton TD, the Minister in Dublin for Jobs, Enterprise and Innovation, expressing his support for the committee's request for a briefing from Enterprise Ireland. So if we're content to contact Enterprise Ireland to arrange that oral briefing. Agreed? Next item is in regard to the drawdown of EU funds. This is at page 29, a response from the Department to the committee queries on the drawdown of EU funds. Now, I'm not so sure, the Department itself hasn't drawn down any FP7 funding. It begs the question, why not? And the other thing it's saying is that data on individual projects is confidential. I thought at some stage the European Union did actually disclose how much money was spent on various projects.
Yeah, can I ask, Chair, just on the confusion there, because in relation to debt, the Department itself has itself not drawn down FP7 funding, but on the basis of the above methodology, its drawdown was attributed to being 50% of the total university drawdown. What does that mean?
I honestly don't know, Paul. I looked at this last night several times and I said, hasn't drawn down, but it has drawn down.
Yeah.
I think we need a lot more clarity on this. It's any wonder FP7 has been the way it is.
I think we just need clarification. What does it mean by that?
And secondly, then, clarification on the data of expenditure on projects on FP7, because I thought that European Union monies it was disclosed where they've been spent as part of the transparency stuff. So if we could check on that, agreed then. Thank you. Next item is at page 40, a letter from the Irish League of Credit Unions, basically expressing their appreciation for the committee's support for its proposal on a waiting range of services to credit unions, so content to note that too. At page 42 then we have a response from the department to the committee queries on the impact of efficiency savings on Intertrade Ireland's programmes. Now, read through it last night and again, I'm not so sure whether it has actually explained how it's going to impact. Because they've shown value added to the economy, jobs impacted. At Table 2, 2013, you're seeing an increase from 2011 495 to 2013 895. You know, very significant increase. And yet the talk is about reducing their budget. Anyway, I think as most of the budget actually comes from the South for Intertrade Ireland, do members agree that this should be an item that we raise with the joint committee whenever we have our joint meeting with the committee from Dublin? I think it would be important we do that, because it would seem a shame at a time whenever they have the potential to help increase jobs, and with the Horizon 2020 being a very important role of Intertrade Ireland, that there should be cutbacks. Members agreed then we leave that for our meeting with our joint meeting with that committee. Okay.
Chair, would you like to forward that paper to the...
yes, that'll be helpful too, Jim. Thank you. Great. Okay. Next item then is Invest NI Helpline. That's at page 45, a response from the department to committee's queries on the level of support available via Invest NI's helpline. Now, just looking over this, and okay, that's grand and it's general and the likes, and it's good to see that they're helping people. But I think we'll be able to tease a lot of this out whenever we're meeting with Invest NI. I think is it June, Jim? A specific meeting that we were agreeing to meet, go down and see just the range of services that they do have. Have we any date for that yet?
Probably early June, Chair. However, I think the CEO of Invest NI wants to brief the committee on the end-of-year figures at some stage in May.
Yeah. Right, okay. That's grand. So if we can tease this out, because we can have letters backwards and forwards, which really doesn't elicit any information, it's hard to beat the one-to-one. Okay. Next item is agenda item number 6, subordinate legislation SR 2014-74, the Control of Major Accident Hazards Amendments Regulation, Northern Ireland 2014. This is at page 46. We have a cover note there with the background, purpose of the rule, and a response from the Department to committee queries and legislation with a copy of the rule. To remind members, this rule is subject to negative resolution, and we did discuss the rule at SL1 stage at the meeting on the 6th of March and had no comment on the rule. The rule is set to come into operation on the 7th of April, and the Examiner of Statutory Rules has no points to raise as regards technical scrutiny. So, I have to put the question then. The Committee for Enterprise, Trade and Investment has considered SR, the Control of Major Accident Hazards Amendment Regulations, Northern Ireland 2014, and has no objection to the rule. Agreed then. Now, we move then to agenda item number 7, which is legislation regarding credit unions and industrial and provident societies bill. This is at page 74 onwards. And we have the papers of briefing note from the clerk a summary of the table of evidence, copy a response from Daddy to committee queries on page 98, Hansard of the ILCU and UFCU briefing, that's at page 100, and a Hansard transcript of the Daddy briefing. Now, are we content, first of all, to forward the departmental response to the Irish League of Credit Unions, the Ulster Federation of Credit Unions, for their information? Agreed? Agreed we do that? Yep. Agreed. And now, can we go through the summary table with a view to agreeing a committee position on each of the proposals? And, right? And if the committee is content with this approach, we'll take members through each proposal and agree a position when agreement is reached. Okay. Right? Okay. Agreed? We go that route. Jim, do you want to take us through each of those proposals there? Yes, please.
Okay, so proposal 1A was to abolish the minimum wage for membership of a credit union, and 1B was to abolish the minimum wage for becoming an officer of a credit union. Both these were rejected in the end by both organisations, and it's not something that the committee had any issues about. So, if members are content with that one.
Agreed? Agreed.
Proposal 2 was to allow credit unions to charge more for the provision of a copy of the rules and to ensure that members are entitled to a copy free of charge. There was one thing mentioned by the organisations in relation to that, and that was that there should be an inbuilt mechanism in the legislation to allow for an increase in the fees credit unions can charge for a copy of the rules in line with inflation. So, would members be content to...
Agreed to pursue that route, yes. It isn't something that's going to come up every week like with credit unions. It's not a major issue, as we heard from them. So, happy enough to go that route to allow for a rise in line with inflation. It ain't going to be something that's going to either break the bank or come up regularly. Agreed? Agreed.
So, proposal 3 and 4 were both rejected in the end by the department, and both organisations were satisfied with this approach.
Happy enough. No reason for us to adopt it.
Proposal 5 was accepted. It's to remove the restriction on non-qualifying members of credit unions, and both organisations supported this proposal as well.
So, agreed to go with that view? Yeah?
Proposal 6 was to allow credit unions to admit corporate members. The department has accepted this proposal, and both organisations are in favour of it as well. However, there is one caveat that the organisations have suggested that it shouldn't be a named individual. For a corporate member, it should be in the name of the organisation. Now, there may be issues around that, but members might want to put that suggestion to the department.
Yes, can we park that one and tease that one out with the department then? Okay, agreed. Agreed.
Okay, proposal 7 was to allow credit unions to offer deferred shares. Now, this was accepted by the department, and on the face of it, both organisations accepted, but members will recall that there were a number of issues around this about, in the event of somebody's death and them not meeting the
yes, the residency.
Yeah, that they could not be passed on. And I think in the end, in the oral evidence, both organisations seem to be satisfied to reject this. So if members are content. Now, the department has said that legal advice is being sought regarding the situation arising where the executor administrator can't find a willing buyer for deferred shares. However, even at that, if both organisations are happy to reject it, the committee may want, if that's the view of members.
Well, we have to wait for the legal opinion coming back to get a better view of all of it. But can we hold this one then and tease that one further out with the department then? Agree to do that?
At this stage, Chair, that's something that the department will be going towards the drafting of the legislation.
Yes.
So if members are, if members were accepting this, it would be important to have the the legal advice, whoever is, as you know, if the committee is sort of minded to reject it in favour of what both organisations said, at this stage, maybe that could be put to the department. That, you know,
I'm a wee bit cautious about if we haven't got what their legal advice, and if they're not in the best informed place yet, I'm a wee bit cautious about accepting or rejecting anything until we have the complete picture. So, what do members feel?
Chair, I agree. Saying that legal advice has been sought.
Aye.
I haven't gotten it yet.
We haven't got it yet.
But is that being sought by the
department?
Department, yeah.
On the basis of the legal advice, will the department potentially change its mind?
Well, that's what we don't know, you see. That's the point.
So do we? But we don't have enough. Were we accepting the views of the two organisations?
Well, we can decide that here today, or we can wait until we see, because potentially the department could come to the point where it's then accepting that too. Or alternatively, there could be something in the legal advice was to, look, this is the reason why we have to reject it. That's my point.
Too long waiting on legal advice.
We have to wait.
Yeah.
Aye. Okay, agreed to park that until we get word back from the department then. Okay? All right.
okay, Chair. So then proposal 8 was to allow credit unions to offer interest-bearing shares. This was accepted, and both organisations accepted this so, as well. So if members
happy enough with that
approach. Proposal 9 was rejected by the department, and both organisations were satisfied with that approach.
Okay, happy enough with that then.
Proposal 10 was to amend provisions relating to the attachment of shares, which was accepted by the department, and both organisations were content with that.
So we're happy enough with that then. Okay. Proposal 11.
Proposal 11 was considering an increase in the 1% per month interest rate cap. This was rejected by the department because I think both organisations were in the end against it.
Yeah.
So,
Happy enough with that. Okay.
and proposal 12, investment in community development, was accepted, and both organisations were very keen to see that.
Okay.
Proposal 13 was to allow the application of company directors' disqualification legislation to credit unions, and there were no issues really raised about that at all. Both organisations
Okay, content with that.
accepted.
13.
Then, in relation to Industrial and Providence Societies, proposals 15 to 19, there were no issues raised by the committee in relation to any of those proposals.
And in regard to 14A, these were also 14A and 14B were supported anyway.
Yes, Chair. I think everything there is accepted, and the committee raised no issues.
Okay, so content enough with those.
And to go.
Okay. Great. Good. That's okay. Thanks very much for that.
Yep.
Right. And then. Okay. And we can agree a response subject to the ones that there's a bit of a qualification on at next week's meeting. Agenda item number 8, legislative consent motion, consumer rights bill. The papers for this are at page 130. Okay. And we have a copy of the legislative consent memorandum at page 131, draft report on the legislative consent motion, page 137. And we've gone through this quite considerable lengths anyway, so unless members have any comments, are they content with the report, and to publish the report on the committee pages of the website and forward the link to all members. Agreed? Okay. Agenda item number 9, which is at page 140, is a response, a written briefing from DETI, a response to the Electricity Policy Review Part 1, Security of Electricity Supply, and we have the response from DETI. Now, if members have any comments on this, sort of looked at this and then I compared it with some of the stuff that we have from the Consumer Council later on, and I'm not so sure that it has been laid out in the same nature of responding to the various issues that we did raise. But nevertheless, it's what we have. So, have any member got any comment on it? No. So are we content to publish the response on the committee pages of the Assembly website and to forward a link to those who give evidence to the committee?
Yes.
Agreed.
It's in order, yeah. Great.
Okay. Right. Move on to agenda item number 10, an update on the committee visit to the Dungannon Enterprise Centre in Willowbank Limited. We have all these details at page 147. And also, Jim has very kindly done up a report here of both visits and a number of the issues that arose. Okay. So, just in terms of the suggested way forward, do members agree that grand to go with the suggested to ask DETI, Invest NI and Enterprise NI if there's any scope for developing a more coordinated approach to developing a programme for retail incubation? Agreed with that bit? And to commission some research on the Scottish Procurement Reform Bill and the Strasbourg Declaration as they relate to the social economy. Agreed? Yep. Now, there was also some mention, I think that Phil had mentioned there was a Northern Ireland Assembly Business Trust, some sort of a visit or a research visit about procurement in Scotland. So if we could find out just a bit more detail on that, could we please, Jim?
It's in May.
When is it?
It's coming up in May.
Wait, have you any date at all, Meg?
The end of May, isn't it?
28th, 29th.
28th and 29th.
Further now.
Right, okay. That's grand. If we could maybe bring it back to the committee, could we, Jim? Just some details on it, please. Okay. Now, agenda item number 11. We have the written briefing from NIRTA. That's on the manifesto for the new councils, and that's at page 212. Okay. So, if members have any comments or if we're content to consider an oral briefing from NIRTA on agreeing the forward work programme following Easter recess, that'd be enough to go that route. Yeah? Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, because there's been already council meetings held with all the respective parties around this, so it's a matter of finding out who agenda item number 12 is a research briefing on the renewable energy development in the public sector, and we have papers for this at page 233. Okay, so I know Aidan's with us today again. So Aidan, maybe I invite you to come forward, please, and have a seat there. Thanks very much for being patient with us. I know you've been put off a time or two there, but the other things just took a bit of a priority. So on this, and thank you, you've read through this last night, on this document, if you could maybe take us through very quickly the main highlights that you've established from it, and then we'll have a few questions from members. Okay?
Okay, Chair. Okay, briefly, public authorities in Northern Ireland have a statutory duty.
Sorry, can you hold a wee minute, Aidan, please? I've just been told that one member, Fergal, here has to go. So can we just look through our agenda? You can sit where you're at just to see. We can hear the evidence from you, surely. It's just I want to see if there's any other items that we might need a decision on before we move into your evidence. Okay. Okay. Right, we'll maybe move to correspondence. There's a few items of correspondence we have to take a decision or two on.
Sorry,
nothing mega or hugely earth-shattering, but nevertheless, if we get it done today, it'll save us doing it next week. Jim, do you want to take us through the correspondence then, please?
Mr. Chair, the first thing is from the Consumer Council regarding the Electricity Policy Review, Part 2. It's a response. Apologies to members who may have noticed that there's a page missing from that. But if members are contented to consider it in more detail when the committee is considering the department's response to the review, it can be brought back to the committee again at that stage.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
correspondence from ICFAN to the Chair regarding a request to make a presentation to the committee.
Yep.
So members are content to receive a written briefing from ICFAN in the first instance.
I think maybe they actually wanted to come and present to us. They had their report, and I think a lot of us already got their report around this. So if we can maybe arrange that, sorry we couldn't cross you here, Jim, if we could arrange that at some stage, could we please add it to our work programme? Agreed? Me.
Chair, if members are content to consider from planning for a programme for after Easter, with that.
Okay.
There's a lot of oral briefing scheduled between Easter and summer, and there's only, I think, 7 weeks. So.
All right. And if we could acknowledge just that it's going to be added to our forward work programme, could we, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Jim.
From the Committee for Finance Personnel regarding the Investment Strategy Project Delivery Portal. Members have any comments on that, or if you're content to ask the Department if it has kept the system up to date and if it will continue to keep the system up to date, because I think there were issues with some departments.
I attended that event the other day, you know, the CBI one, and it came up there about the procurement opportunities and just the flow of information not been as fully up to speed as what it should be from government departments. Now, they didn't particularly single out any department in particular, but they said that the portal itself, and some people said sometimes in their view that it's up to date and other times it isn't. So it's one to keep a watch and brief on. And if we could ask the department, that is Enterprise Trade and Investment and any of its associated bodies, well, it'd be the Tourist Board or Invest NI, that they continue to, where relevant, keep it fully up to date. Agreed then. Thank you.
Okay, then table today is an invitation from the Assembly and Business Trust to a briefing on the budget announcement made by the Chancellor and the possible implications for Northern Ireland. So members can contact the committee office if they wish to attend.
All right, this is at the back of the documents, and that's Tuesday the 8th, Tuesday week. Okay.
Okay, and then also table today is correspondence from the Department on the proposed consultation on revised health and safety approved codes of practice. Full consultation documents were emailed to members yesterday, and of course they're available from the committee office as well. So if members are content to await the outcomes of the consultation on that one.
Agreed then? Agreed. Okay, and just, unless there's any other business, just to notify the date, time and place of our next meeting is on Thursday, the 3rd of April, next Thursday at Denroy Plastics in Bangor at 10 a.m. Now, the other thing just... Sorry, is this about this, Paul?
Business, just...
Oh, right. The other thing about that is, given that we're sort of here, many of us, and going out, would members be happy enough that we have a small bus arranged for that to go to Denroy?
Idea.
And I give my apologies now. I'm in Brussels next week.
Oh, great, Megan. Okay.
There's apologies from me as well.
Apologies from Sydney. So,
Chair, I'm struggling too at the minute, although I'm not confirmed one way or the other yet.
Then maybe a bus isn't such a good idea. Excuse me.
Sure, if it's going to be so close.
Go on the bike.
Aye. If we could just...
You could cycle it. You could cycle it, all right.
I can cycle.
Yep.
You could. I'm sure you'll have 20 packs now.
Tandem.
Right. Maybe just, can we leave it then in the hands of the staff? If it's felt that a bus or a small taxi or whatever, one of those small van types is appropriate, then we can do that. If not, then members can find their own way there, okay? Thank you. Now, there's one other item before I come to you, Paul, and I need to throw this one out. Given that we're into, again, election year, and it's just for members to reflect on this, the election's obviously the 22nd of May, and we would have been scheduled for a meeting on the 15th of May. What do members feel about the suitability of that? Are we going to be able to get here? I know some of us might be struggling. We could always have a meeting in Cookstown, like it would solve my problems, but... What do members feel?
How does it impact on the work programme, Chair?
Well, again, Stormont keeps going.
Aye.
Assembly keeps going, is that right? We've no reason to...
But are members going to be available or not? This is basically it, or is there going to be pressure put on for...
I suppose, can I ask the question, can we afford to take a full day off with regards to forward work programme?
Well, I suppose it wouldn't be a full day, you know?
Ah, sorry.
Aye.
I mean, it's a week before the election, isn't that right?
Yes.
15th to 22nd.
What do you think, Megan?
So here, yeah.
Right, okay.
Be knocking doors in the morning time.
No, not
Yeah,
good.
that's a very good point. You know, you're although the candidates will be knocking doors 24/7, maybe when you want the crowd, there's no point taking a crowd out canvassing in the morning when everybody's at work. So most of that prime time will be after dinner,
Okay.
after lunch, after
That's
supper.
grand. It's all right. I'm just throwing it out here now just to see, to make sure that people be here and all that. Paul, you want something?
Well, I can't promise I'll be here, but I certainly have no intention not to be here. If you know what I mean. You never know what happens.
Depends who they
I'm content to still schedule a meeting in, and then maybe nearer the time. Then I know it's hard to knock about.
There's different ones of it will have different involvement, and I personally in the election. So at any time, we're not just quite sure where we'll be.
Right.
But
Okay.
At the present time, if it suits, I have no problem
Right.
with the meeting.
That's all right.
Yeah, just on the. Forgive me if it's come up and I've just snipped out and missed it, but just with regards to our proposed new inquiry on the connection to the grid, times and costs, I have 3 identified people or companies that would be interested in maybe tapping into that inquiry.
Okay.
One member one constituent who is contemplating applying for a grid connection at the cost of 5,600. One company or one person from Clough who's already been charged 65,000 and 175,000 respectively for 2 applications, and then a company from Dungiven who has been costed 500,000. So again, this is a big issue. So I'll tap into whoever I need to tap into, whether it's Jim, the clerk, or whoever it is. I'll just get details to them.
Okay.
Okay.
That's grand. Right. Now, Aidan, it's over to you. Yes, Sammy, just...
I'm just out of our business. This was mentioned a couple of weeks ago in relation to trade delegation and investors. Been anything more? Because I've picked up there's things been planned.
Right.
From our side, because the Minister expressed or someone expressed.
I don't know.
Some
Jim,
suggestions.
have any update on that?
No update, but apparently there is something in the pipeline. We should be getting some information in the committee office in the near future.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Okay, that's good enough. And as soon as that comes in, it'll be shared with all members. So. All right, Aidan, please continue.
Thanks, Chair. Okay, so public authorities have a statutory duty to act in a way that it considers best calculated to achieve sustainable development in Northern Ireland, except to the extent that it considers that any such action is not reasonably practicable in all the circumstances of the case. That comes from the Northern Ireland Miscellaneous Provisions Act. Now, while this doesn't explicitly refer to renewable energy, either in general or in the context of the public sector estate, the interpretation of the duty, as outlined in government policy, does include renewable energy development. The duties worked out and expanded on in 3 pieces of government strategy. The most central of those is the 2010 strategy, Everyone's Involved. 2 priority areas in this are relevant. Priority Area 3 commits to including renewable energy considerations in future infrastructural provision, whilst Priority Area 5 states that departments and public authorities must seek to promote energy efficiency, reducing the amount of fossil fuels we need and the overall cost to our economy. We must promote renewable energy, protecting ourselves from the volatility of international markets and the implications for security of supply. This strategy document is further developed in the Sustainable Development Implementation Plan, which covers 2011 to 2014. Within this plan, each department's specific role in delivering the goals of the Sustainable Development Strategy is expanded upon. Sections 3.2 to 3.13 of the paper outline the department's actions and roles with respect to energy matters and within the public sector, specifically renewable energy matters and the development of renewables within the public sector of the state. How each department takes this up is variable. Departments The Department's commitments to sustainable energy use range from reducing energy use and increasing energy efficiency, compliance with the Carbon Reduction Commitment Energy Efficiency Scheme, to more explicit references to developing renewable energy on their estates or on the estates of their arm's-length bodies. The implementation plan also includes councils and states that they will seek to increase the proportion of energy they source from renewable sources and waste sites. DFP, through its properties division, has a unique role within the public sector. It's tasked with providing timely and accurate data analysis for the public sector building energy use through the public sector energy campaign. Section 5 of the paper notes this is achieved through the Department's publication of the energy consumption and progress against targets for the public sector in Northern Ireland document. This includes the monitoring of the use of renewable energies within the public sector. The latest version of this available provides data for 2010 and 2011. DFP was asked for an update on when the next publication is due and the frequency of the publications, to which they responded. Due to other pressing work commitments, there has been some slippage in the production of the annual report. The data for the 11-12 year has been collated, analysed, and the report is being drafted. A third document, Sustainable Strategy Duty, a guide for public authorities, is also being published, and this, with regard to renewable development in the public sector, states that public authorities should report on their use of renewable technologies such as wind turbines, geothermal energy or biomass. Those are the specific three that are mentioned in it. The final section of the paper provides an update on Assembly Research's examination of data on public sector renewables development. During 2013, data was provided by DFP and the Health Department, and a committee briefing was prepared and presented to the committee in June 2013. From the data provided, it was possible to calculate the proportion of public sector buildings in the state that had some form of renewable energy generation. We find that 4.4% had some generator that was renewable, which is 191 buildings out of 4,300 on which data was provided. This didn't provide a complete picture. It was not possible to calculate the total proportion of energy consumed on the public sector estate that was powered by renewable sources. This was due to gaps in the data. Due to these omissions and inconsistency, these gaps were things like DFP data reporting buildings with a large floor area that had an electricity consumption of 0, or buildings with a negligible floor area of 1 metre squared recording large electricity consumptions. And within the Department of Health data, there were a large number of incomplete or nil returns within it. So just to sum up, all departments have a statutory duty to be sustainable when exercising their functions. The interpretation of this duty appears to include, but is not limited to, the development of renewables. How this is taken up by public bodies varies. The monitoring of energy use within the public sector is the responsibility of DFP's property division, but the annual report on this has encountered slippage, and the data previously provided on public sector use of renewables could be used to calculate the proportion of public sector buildings using renewable energy, but not the proportion of actual energy used that came from renewables. So that's me.
Yeah, thanks for that, Aidan. Just Aidan, on page, well, better see, it's page 7 of your report, at paragraph 3.7 there, in regard to the Department of Finance and Personnel. I don't know whether it's cut and paste or whatever, but it says DFP will produce an energy efficiency action plan for the Government Office Estate by March 2011. Well, as we know, that's well past us now. So Just wondering where that came from, and if in fact, well, obviously the will bit is in the wrong
Yes,
tense.
yeah, that is a cut and paste.
Aye, that's okay. But so therefore, is there any further update as to whether or not they actually produced that energy efficiency action plan, or was it one of the things that they said had slipped by the wayside?
I'm not sure if that has slipped. I know that the reporting has slipped. I'll check that out for you, Chair, and get confirmation of.
Okay, thank you for that. Paul?
Yeah, I think Ian for his report there. Again, this is one of those things that I think it's all well and dandy when it's wrote down on an action plan, if you could even call it that. There's a massive difference here between the necessity for business to actually improve efficiency. There's a necessity there that if they don't, they will die, they will lose jobs, they will go out of business. And we've seen that through our inquiries. There's not the same onus or incentivisation in the public sector. And I don't know how or where we can actually, because civil servants have various roles to play and responsibilities, I don't see there being a real groundswell and somebody being responsible for delivering a renewable energy package within different bodies. Now, there well could be an energy officer, or there could well be someone like that in a council or a certain department, but then there's no real joined up thinking, and they are left on a limb. If you look at some of the councils in England, Nottingham Council have now just developed the largest PV canopy in their area, which could generate around 216,000 annually for that council. There is no thinking in that regard in any of our councils. They struggle, and all departments struggle to even consider putting renewable energy into their buildings, let alone trying to do a scheme that will actually be a less burden on ratepayers. And I think we have a lot of work to do in the public sector to get them up to speed.
Well, just on that point, Paul, I'm looking at 3.1 there. On OFM, DFM, with regard to renewable energy and implementation plan states the department's role will be to reduce its energy requirements. We could maybe establish a wee bit more as to what what that role is, and if in fact they, along with, could be SIB, for example, are doing to initiate stuff like that, because not only does it save and heating costs and energy costs within building, but Nottingham, they're generating money from it.
Yeah. Can I maybe
benefit of the ratepayers?
I agree 100%. Can I ask maybe Ian to maybe look at the Nottingham Council model and see? Obviously, there's differences in council over here.
There would be,
massive difference, but the concept's still the same.
There's a lot of public sector buildings.
Yeah.
Like, for example, can we just sort of rewind here and look at the building that we're in at the moment?
Yeah.
Has anything been factored into the roof project, for the likes of introduction of renewables? Absolutely. I don't know. Yeah. And we could maybe establish that too.
Chair, can I just go in on Paul's point there?
Where does the buck stop here? And Aidan, first of all, thanks so much for the presentation, and the written stuff was very good. But you talked about variations here from different departments, and that. Does anybody have overall responsibility for this? And secondly, how is this going to be monitored? Say that you get a department going off and doing their own thing or not doing their own thing, as the case may be. Where's the buck stop and who monitors that?
That's what I was trying to get there with the OFM, DFM bit where it says on page 5 there.
OFM, DFM have overall responsibility for sustainable development, which is a broader. Broader than renewables, but includes renewables.
The question: did they actually monitor it then?
The monitoring of energy is DFP's properties division.
Yep.
But they
Debating this, Leon.
produce a report on that, and it's supposed to be an annual report, but it has hit slippage.
And then again, is there, because there be some organisations, and a bit like in Nottingham, is there someone come up and saying, you know, here's good practice here across the public sector, here's what someone Lisburn's doing, or here's another department. Is there anybody doing that?
I'm not sure. It can be looked into as well, of course.
The Department of Justice there, I'm just reading that there, they seem to be in prisons and all there in 3.10. There's a lot of work going on there, obviously.
There are departments doing stuff. It's just.
So the question needs to be asked, like, they can do it, and maybe they're in a better position to do it because of their establishments, but
Could we I'm sort of trying to get a wee bit of a handle on this and discussing it here with Jim as to what we could do, because this clearly there's NETI interest in this, and clearly there's DFP interest in it, and there's also OFM, DFM. I'm wondering, is there any way that we could have a collaborative approach to, say, a debate in the Assembly on this between those three committees, to try and bring maybe a bit more of a sharper focus to these issues and get a bit of a handle on it and get people thinking together and maybe acting together?
Yeah, sure.
So would members be happy enough with that approach? I know we can't action it until we get
focused minds and focused departments.
No, I think we should. I think we should push this, but I think we should be asking for that annual report on why even slippage on it. Why do they not? Obviously, if there's slippage every year on it, then it's not that important an issue to them. So I think it's worth pursuing that to see exactly where we are, and then let's scrutinise the actual detail of the report when it's published, see how much work is actually being done, how much has actually progressed.
It's not showing itself just yet, anyway.
Just on that Nottingham, Chair, just on that, there's 1 gigawatt of energy being produced, which is saving 600 tonnes of carbon annually. So the positives are mighty,
Right, okay. Anybody else want to ask Aidan anything further? No, we have a few suggested course of actions there we can't do anything about till Megan comes back, either that or leave it till next week. So, Aidan, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, Aidan.
And as usual, thank you. Okay. And at that point, we don't have anything further we can do.
There's
another document here.
Which could be discussed.
There's another document here on cross-border committee meetings in Europe. The recommendation is that we just forward to Megan yet? No. No word of Megan yet. Jacqueline, no. Right, well, maybe give her a couple of minutes here, but I want to. The other document here is a research and information service briefing. That's cross-border committee meetings in Europe now. Again, it's very much about the process in Europe and what happens. I don't think we can, unless anybody has a particular interest in it today, we could note this and park it for, hold it for showing us where it takes us, much to be expected. So, thanks very much for that, Aidan. Thank you. All right. All right.
Do you want to move into closed section?
We'll just, can we move into closed session then now, please?